Hey, good evening. Good evening. So, do you want to know how to identify your ADHD triggers so that you can lessen those symptoms or possibly avoid your symptoms getting worse? Well, stay tuned. I'm going to actually give you 7 ways to avoid triggering your ADHD symptoms being worse. Hi, I'm Cindy Baker. I am a coach for entrepreneurs and other creative professionals who have issues with organization, time management, focus. Um, and I am the creator of the 3P Power program, which stands for Positive, Prepared, Productive. And I help people work with their ADHD instead of fighting against it. I actually help entrepreneurs leverage ADHD as their superpower, giving them a competitive edge. Stay tuned to the end. I am going to share with you how you can participate in a free training that I have coming up. So you want to stay tuned at the end. I'll let you know about that. So if you are watching live, I know this is streaming different places. If you're watching live, if you could say hi in the chat, that would be awesome. Let me know where you're from and let me know that you are watching. And again, if you're watching the replay, if you could just say hashtag replay. Love to know your comments. So if you're watching, let me know, say hi in the chat. If you are watching the replay, make sure you just let me know. Just say hashtag replay. If there's something that you'd like, use the chat. Type in there some comments and give me some emojis, anything like that. If there's something that jumps out, or if you have a question, and I do circle back and read those for the replay people. So hopefully there will be lots of replay people as well. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So we're going to talk about identifying your ADHD triggers. And as you're probably aware, ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder. It's characterized by attention span issues, time management issues. Basically, it affects the executive functions in your brain. It's not, it has nothing to do with intelligence. In fact, a lot of people with ADHD are actually above the norm in intelligence and very high in creativity. So, research indicates that certain biological and environmental factors can trigger ADHD symptoms. Now, you can't cure ADHD, but you can take steps to manage it. So you may be able to minimize your symptoms by identifying your unique individual trigger points. And some common triggers are there things like stress, poor sleep, lack of sleep, certain foods and additives, overstimulation, even technology. And once you figure out what triggers your ADHD symptoms, then you can make the necessary lifestyle changes to better control those episodes. Now, let's talk about stress. Stress for adults, especially. Stress often triggers ADHD episodes in adults. And I'm sure none of you listening to this ever struggle with stress, right? No, I think we know what that means. Our ADHD symptoms get worse when we're under stress. And at the same time, ADHD may cause a perpetual state of stress because a person who has ADHD can't successfully focus all the time and filter out all the excess stimuli. And that just increases stress levels. So anxiety, which can stem from approaching deadlines, procrastination, the inability to focus on the work at hand, that can raise stress levels even more. And so unmanaged stress aggravates common symptoms of ADHD. So I would encourage you to evaluate yourself during periods of stress, like for example, when a work project is coming up to a due date, and think about it. Are you more hyperactive than usual? Are you having more trouble concentrating than normal? Do you have trouble sleeping? Try to incorporate, you know, daily activities or daily, I guess, techniques to relieve stress. Take regular breaks when you're performing tasks and engage in exercise or relaxing activities like yoga. Even a stretch break makes a big difference. Um, and lack of sleep is another big one. And I hear the people that I coach in my coaching program, a lot of them struggle with sleep. Um, and ADHD stimulant medications increase those dopamine levels in our brain, and that's in the specific areas of our brain and other parts of the central nervous system. And so you've got these increased dopamine levels, and that may alleviate some of your ADHD symptoms, which is good, but it can increase the likelihood of sleep disturbances, just like caffeine. And so those medications may make it difficult to fall asleep, and you might wake up during the night, which can cause daytime sleepiness. And sleep, there's a direct correlation between sleep and your brain's ability to focus and remember. So memory issues, that mental fogginess that results from poor sleep, that just makes your ADHD worse. It causes inattention, indecisiveness, impulsivity, drowsiness, careless mistakes. Inadequate sleep also leads to a decline in uh, your brain's performance, your concentration, your reaction time, your ability to comprehend things. So you definitely don't want to take for granted how important sleep is. Too little sleep can cause a person to become um, kind of hyperactive to compensate for the kind of that sluggishness that they feel. So get at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep each night, and you may have to work up to that. That may be way more than you're used to. But if you can do that, that can help a person with ADHD control negative symptoms the next day, because it's easy to think, well, I've worked all day and I reward myself with, staying up and watching a stupid Netflix movie or something like that. But you will pay for it the next day, and you may not have even made the connection that the lack of sleep is what's making your ADHD worse. So definitely sleep. Another thing that research is kind of controversial, but people have published studies on, and that's certain foods and additives in foods. And certain foods can either help or worsen symptoms of ADHD. So, in coping with the disorder, it's important to pay attention to whether specific foods worsen or alleviate your symptoms. And so, there's a lot of reasons to eat healthy anyway, even if you didn't have ADHD, but nutrients like proteins, fatty acids, calcium, magnesium, vitamin B, they help to properly nourish your body and your brain. And it may help diminish symptoms of ADHD. So certain foods and food additives have been thought kind of the opposite, to make the ADHD symptoms worse in some people. For instance, it's a good idea for many reasons to avoid foods that have a lot of sugar and fat. Certain additives like sodium benzoate, that's a preservative that's really common. MSG, red dyes, yellow dyes, those are all used to enhance the flavor and the taste and the appearance of food. Those can aggravate symptoms of ADHD. Um, And there are studies that have been done more recently, but a 2007 study linked artificial dyes and sodium benzoate to greater hyperactivity in children of certain age groups, regardless of their ADHD status. So I imagine it affects adults as well. Now, appetite suppression is sometimes a common side effect of stimulant medications that doctors use to treat ADHD, especially when people first start taking them and their body hasn't adjusted quite yet. And that can result in mineral deficiencies. So if you're not eating right and you have a deficiency in zinc, for example, that can produce inattentiveness, that can produce restlessness and delayed cognitive development. Now, there's no evidence that mineral deficiencies cause ADHD, though. That was sort of thrown around many years ago, but there's no evidence that supports that. Okay, so another thing that really triggers ADHD is overstimulation. Many people with ADHD experience bouts of overstimulation. That's when they just feel bombarded by overwhelming sights and sounds. Crowded venues such as concert halls, amusement parks, they can trigger ADHD symptoms. I'll give you an example. About a month ago, my husband and I went to IKEA here in our city in Memphis. And I hadn't been to an IKEA in a long time. And I just had like an ADHD meltdown, okay? Because it was just too much stimulation. There was so much to look at, and there were so many people and so many rooms and so much furniture, and it all started kind of to look alike. And it was too many decisions to make. And it's hard to explain that to somebody who doesn't have ADHD. And I just sort of stopped. I just stood still, and I told my husband, I can't do this anymore. And he was just looking at me like, what is wrong with you? I said, I just need to go home. I couldn't handle it. And now that I know about ADHD, I realize that's what it was. So you have to allow, adequate personal space. That's important for preventing outbursts of your symptoms. So you want to avoid crowded places or rush hour congestion, busy times at the supermarket, high traffic malls, all those things. And more people are shopping online and able to avoid that. But, as best as you can, you want to avoid places that have just too much going on. It's like your brain is looking at a bunch of blinking Christmas lights all the time and listening to 3 or 4 different bands playing at the same time. It's hard to separate out all that's noise. And another thing, it's one of those things that's good and bad, and that's technology. There's a lot of good in technology. You are watching me streaming live, and that's technology. And you're learning some helpful tips, hopefully. But there's a lot of bad as well. Constant electronic stimulation from computers and cell phones and television, internet, those can aggravate symptoms. And, there's been a lot of debate about whether watching TV influences ADHD. So I don't know what the answer is, but it may intensify symptoms for sure. Flashing images and excessive noise, that does not cause ADHD. However, if you're a person who's having a hard time focusing, a glaring screen with strobe lights, that can affect your concentration. I have a friend who gets migraines and seizures, and strobe lights actually trigger it. So there is something to that. It's much better to release, pent up energy by a good workout than sitting for long stretches of time in front of a screen like a lot of kids do these days. Make it a point to monitor your television and computer and phone time, and just limit it to set segments. Otherwise, you might be actually making your ADHD worse without realizing it. And there's not really any specific guidelines right now currently for how much screen time is appropriate for someone with ADHD. It definitely differs. I know that a lot has been said about children, how much TV they watch, and the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that infants and children under 2 years of age never watch television or use entertainment media. I know. And so using it as a babysitter, bad idea. Children over 2 should be limited to 2 hours of high quality entertainment media. And so I don't know what it would be for adults, but how much time do we waste watching that next episode of something on Netflix when it just starts automatically and they leave you with the cliffhanger, and then you're like, well, I'll just watch a little bit of the next one. Really, we need to be careful about that. So I guess bottom line is be patient, avoiding things that trigger ADHD symptoms. That may mean you got to make some changes to your routine. And you got to stick to some lifestyle changes that are going to help you manage your symptoms. So I'm just going to kind of leave you with 7 things that you might want to consider that will help you manage your symptoms. And we've spoken about some of them. And the first one's just eating a healthy, balanced diet. You definitely need to be aware that what you put in your body does affect your brain and your emotions. So you want to avoid trigger foods. So eat healthy and then also avoid trigger foods, which we spoke about earlier. You want to limit your screen time. Exercise. Let me tell you, exercise is one of the best things an ADHD person can do. That, and I think the second thing is to find a job or a hobby that really utilizes their strengths. Those 2 things. But exercise is so good for the ADHD brain. Practice mindfulness, meaning don't just mindlessly do things. Be aware of what you're doing and talk to yourself about it. Like, hey, how much TV have I watched tonight? Or, do I really need to be eating talk to yourself. When you do have a lot to do and you feel stressed, break down tasks into small, manageable chunks. And always tell the people in my coaching program that you want to make each of those steps like its own task in and of itself. And you want to schedule that part of the big task, schedule that part on a specific day at a specific time on your calendar. Don't just have it on a to-do list. And that will help reduce some of that stress. You want to use a planner, a calendar, reminders, timers, all those kind of things can be super helpful. So let me see what you got. Do you guys have any tips or anything else? And some of you are being really shy. Please, if you're watching somewhere where this is streaming and there's a comment section, please comment. It does help the algorithm, and you'll get to see more of this kind of stuff. Hi, Kathy. Sleep study for sleep apnea. Yes, definitely. Sleep apnea can make you have a high blood pressure, which is a whole another issue. So definitely get that sleep study done. And so Kathy, you can ask me privately about that too, because you've been through my coaching program, so you know me. Anybody else? And go ahead and say hi. If you're watching live or on the replay, make sure you say something in the comments. And if you're watching the replay, just say #replay. Hey there, Carol, watching from Houston, a 3P Power member, a brand new member. And I know Carol from other business ventures. So anybody have any tips they want to add or comments or questions? If not, hey, we got somebody from Canada. Awesome. I don't have my phone with me, so I can't see. It just says Facebook user. But good to see everybody, and I will definitely see you next time. In the meantime, if you do celebrate, I hope you have a wonderful Easter weekend, and I hope this was some good motivation for your week. Gives me an understanding why my daughter would cry. Yes, I felt like crying in IKEA. I just was about to have a breakdown. Sue, yep. Okay, awesome. Yes, thank you for sharing that. That definitely makes sense. And it's different for everybody too. You can't kind of make a blanket, all ADHD people are this way. Everybody's different. But the key is just become aware and try to avoid things if you can that are going to make things worse for you. All right. So let me know in the chat if you're watching the replay, if you've got any questions or comments, or maybe you have some other tips you want to add. Hope you guys have a great week. If you're in my paid group, Focus and Flow, you have an extra training coming up on Wednesday. And I told you if you stayed to the end, I would let you know about something that I have coming up. And that is Thursday night. I'm repeating a training called the Get More Done system for entrepreneurs. And so if you are someone, you don't have to be an entrepreneur, but if you want to get more done, it's free. It's less than an hour, and it is Thursday night, 7 p.m. Central. There will be replays available. But there's some special bonuses for people who are live. So I will put the URL in the chat in the different places this is streaming. But in the meantime, you can just jot it down. It's a getmoredonemasterclass.com. Easy to remember. GETMOREDONE masterclass.com. Getmoredonemasterclass.com. You got to sign up because it's the only way you get the Zoom link. And I hope to see you there. Have a great night. Bye, everybody.